Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. Review time once again. This one, Duncan and I are going to be breaking down the new album from Australian technical deathcore unit Aversions Crown. The band are due to release their fourth album, Hell Will Come For Us All, on June 12th via Nuclear Blast Records. Now, Aversions Crown have had their fair share of lineup changes over the years. In fact, when we saw them in Glasgow, they actually had 3 guitarists, I'm sure, on stage when we saw them in Glasgow.
We've seen this band before.
Yes, we have. What was the name of the venue? Oh, I can't remember the name of the venue in Glasgow. They played with Aegeon were supporting. I can't remember who else was on the bill, but yeah, we saw Aversions Crown in Glasgow. But the good news is that the lineup is now finalised in the wake of their upcoming album, and have most recently been joined by vocalist Tyler Miller. It's been 3 years since the release of the band's sci-fi inspired release, Xenocide, and whilst new vocalist Tyler Miller is equally as interested in science fiction, lyrically this new album expands to more real-world current events. And to be honest, there's nothing more relatable than what's going on in the world at this moment in time.
Yeah, so. This is literally the soundtrack for 2020.
It totally is, yeah. Where to start musically? For me, this is still very much an Aversions Crown record. Their kind of musical DNA is still pulsing through this album, and it sounds enormous. Like, it's produced by Will Putney, who you've probably heard us talk about on the podcast before. And let's be honest, a bad production from him is as rare as rocking horse shit, to be honest. If you listen to new albums from Body Count or After the Burial, Knocked Loose, tell me I'm wrong after listening to those albums. This album is no different. The mix is punchy, it's tight, but it's not kind of overbearing in any way. But obviously, I suppose the one main element that's changed is the vocals. Now the vocals, the gutturals are still present, so there's no need to panic on that front. He's got a great screaming tone, but Tyler Miller also adds another string to the bow of Aversions Crown, and that comes in the form of clean melodies. When I say clean melodies, I don't mean like saccharine sweet like Jimmy Eats World or Weezer or something like that. The melodies on this.
I love that's the direction you like. Of all the metal you could have picked that have melodic singers, you go for pop punk bands as a comparison. He doesn't sound like Rivers Cuomo, right? That's what I'm saying to you.
It does not. It's still disgustingly heavy.
Yeah.
And you'll hear on, like, the opening track is called The Soil. You'll hear those clean melodies on there, but they're kind of blended in a way that sounds more like a kind of tonal scream almost. Almost kind of Gojira-esque in a way. I know we talk about Gojira all the time in this podcast, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. I suppose, and while that's not particularly new to this genre, we've heard bands like Fit for an Autopsy or most recently Whitechapel do this sort of stuff in the past. But I suppose it is something new for Aversions Crown, and it is an addition that does make a noticeable difference to their overall sound. And I must admit, I really enjoyed that kind of new layer of contrast that they've added in. It's not something I could imagine the old vocalist doing, so it's clearly something they've thought about a lot when they brought in Tyler Miller. Musically, I dug what they've done in terms of the atmospherics. They've added a bit more atmosphere to their tracks, and the kind of darker tones on tracks like Paradigm or Sorrow Never Sleeps really suit the band's sound, and actually it almost kind of lifts those clean sections up even more. I wouldn't say it's the most technical album. I'd say they've reined in some of the technical kind of viciousness that was displayed on albums like Xenocide, but don't get me wrong, it's still a very heavy album. It's still fast, it's still brutally heavy, but I'd say on the whole it's probably more controlled, which I suppose shows to me that they have kind of grown since their last release. Negatives, I would say it can be a little formulaic at times, I suppose. It's not uncommon in deathcore albums to hear like a familiar blueprint being used. And the same goes for the breakdowns. At times they can feel a little cliche, a little bit predictable, but that being said, I kind of like the path they're going down as a band. It's a far less untidy album from some of the past releases, and the new kind of vocal elements I feel are a step in the right direction for Aversions Crown. What did you think? What did you make of it?
I'm not the biggest fan, if I'm honest, and I do not believe that any one person should shit over something that they can't do themselves. So yeah, I couldn't do anything that was done on this album nearly as good as what these guys do. It kind of falls into... See, I wouldn't even class them as a deathcore band. I would just say they're death metal and be done with it. It to me has a... If you're a fan of death metal, I imagine this like a firm fan, like a solid fan. I imagine it's going to tick a lot of boxes for you. It is so relentlessly, just like, not even punishing is the wrong word, just so relentlessly go, constantly, that I was exhausted by the middle of it, to be honest with you. The drumming is incredible, and here's the thing, musically these guys are shit hot. Like the drumming is just in fucking insane. The drummer is like 6 arms, 17 legs, right? Don't ask me why 17 legs. One is his Bobby Dave, right? Because it equals up. Like the drummer is like rapid, like very, very tight. Production accentuates that for sure. Guitar riffs are once again fast. So when the grooves kick in, love it. But it's just like it's go 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 go. Vocally, I'm maybe not as sold on the vocalist as much as you. I think it's maybe because I've heard this specific style of vocal done. Like Whitechapel's actually a really good comparison. Where I think that adds an element which really does transcend and change the whole dynamic of what you're listening to. And here I think it's a really good addition, but I don't necessarily think it adds an additional layer, if you know what I mean. It sits comfortably on what they're doing, but I don't think it makes it transcend in any way, kind of shape or form. This, and Dave, I think the reason Dave is kind of laughing is because I think on some level you knew when you sent this to me, this was unlikely to be one that I was going to kind of come in high on. I imagine if you are a fan of this band, you're gonna really dig this album, because whilst it's not for me, there isn't really anything about it that I could pinpoint as just the guitars are a bit stock. They're not actually. The guitars are really well written, and I've yet to hear any of the previous stuff or even the previous vocalists. So apparently I saw them live and can't remember it. But they're, I love the riffing on it. I love the production on it. I think the drums are great, and I think the vocalist is great as well. But like the songs just aren't there for me. Like they just flow into each other in a way where I couldn't necessarily make out exactly where one was finishing and where one was starting. If this was a drummer just hitting a stop and then that's the end of the song, or if this was a drummer hitting a stop and then the next riff's going to kick in. So for me, I appreciate all the musicality on it. It's unlikely to be anything that I'll go back and listen to again, and it's mostly down to the fact that I've said before, when you're dealing with the kind of more death metal aspects, for me, what intrigues me the most are when people start really experimenting and playing with different genres, and with that as additions, are really going out their way to make it sound like this is a heavy influence in an element and something which could go in a different direction. This one has a very, very tight strict confine of what it wants to sound like and does not deviate from start to finish. And as a result, I struggle to keep my attention when listening to it.
Yeah.
And like I say, that's not a slight against the band at all. I genuinely think musically they're fucking great. They're just not writing songs catered to my taste or my ear either. But I'm glad that you dug it. I've said it before. I say it when I review films on my other podcast. I hate this idea of, because I don't like something, unlike Metal Hammer, I'm not going to dictate what people should listen to or how they should rate things. If I don't like something, I want to hope that there are plenty of people out there that do dig it, because a lot of time and energy goes into create any artistic project. This is just one that didn't resonate with me.
So overall, for me personally, I think it's a more mature sounding album. They've definitely shown more control on this record, and the addition for me of the more atmospheric tones and the new vocal styles do make for a more interesting listen, but the kind of repetitive structure of a lot of the tracks does frustrate me a little. I wish they had just switched up the formula a little more in this album, and I think it would have been a lot better. For me, rating wise, it probably sits about a 3.5, I think, out of 5 for me.
I'm going to come in halfway, 2.5.
2.5, nice. This one drops on June the 12th on Nuclear Blast. The band are Aversions Crown, and the album is called Hell Will Come For Us All. If you want to check the band out, check them out on Facebook, facebook.com/Aversions Crown.